As we said, today is All Saints' Day, also sometimes called All Hallows' Day. Yesterday was Halloween, or All Hallows' Evening, as it began, shortened into Halloween throughout the centuries. And Halloween, in case, just talk a little bit about Halloween and the beginnings of Halloween. I had to go to the History Channel and learn about it myself. But Halloween actually began with the Celtic tradition of Samhain, which was a harvest festival as well. But the Celts believed that the veil between worlds was thinnest at that time of year, allowing the opportunity for spirits to pass between worlds. And so they would wear masks, they would don costumes in order to disguise themselves or to fit in a way so that they wouldn't stick out or they wouldn't be recognized. And many other traditions formed around that. Then the Christians, you know how the Christians are, they didn't... In order to try to convert some of these pagans, they didn't want to just poo-poo the whole thing, so they took it over and made it into All Hallows Evening, or the day before All Saints' Day, which they had to move in order to do that. But anyway, so they continued that idea that during that time, during that evening, or that souls would wander the earth until All Hallows Evening. And All Hallows Evening was an opportunity for those souls to exact revenge on people before they went into the next world. And so people, again, would disguise themselves and they would wear masks in order so that they wouldn't be recognized. And so the whole tradition and many of the other traditions, one of the traditions about trick-or-treat came out of that as well, that the Catholic Church taught that before souls went into the next world, they were in purgatory, and that the more prayers that went up for them, the more opportunity they had to get out of purgatory and ascend into heaven. And so people would go around to houses and ask for soul cakes. And they would get soul cakes, and the soul cake then, if somebody gave them a soul cake, then they would go and pray for the person that they wanted them to pray for. And so many of the traditions kind of developed around a lot of that activity. But what we talk about around mask is that that's where it comes from. The idea of wearing these costumes and these masks are to protect us from the evil spirits. And we know that we also not only wear these costumes and masks, but in everyday life, we wear masks, psychological masks, that we live from. And we take on these identities, very often because of something that happens in our childhood or some way of identifying ourselves that may have been painful. But we wear masks in order to, or the idea is to protect ourselves from danger, from fear, the things that we fear. That if we are really ourselves, then we might face some danger, we might be hurt, or we might be dejected or rejected. Because we don't fit in. We don't fit into the world. And so we wear these masks. But what happens with that is that they do protect us in some way, but they also prevent us from relating to each other. They hide our light. They hide our true nature. Just like with Superman. He had to dress up because he wasn't fitting in. He was in danger if he didn't hide himself. And so we hide ourselves. We hide our light. And so we don't allow that light to shine when we wear our mask. And so part of our service today is that we are going to have a couple of skits. As our creative ministry team came together at the direction of Kimberly Herndon, who is a graduate student at Iliff. She's learning to master her divinity at Iliff. And so She's a Master's of Divinity student at Iliff, and so she asked me if she could help create this service as part of one of her class assignments. And so that's what we're going to do today. And so we're going to show you a little bit about the beginnings of masks and how we might wear our masks today. And so another Iliff graduate is going to come up and start this out for us. Jim Llewellyn.
Given the mission to reflect about the origins of masks that we know go much further back than a couple thousand years ago and my Celtic ancestors, we went to one of our most ancient sources, the Bible, where in the 3rd chapter of the book of Genesis, we uncovered the origins of masks. And this is how it goes. In the beginning, God created a paradise, and it was perfect. Then God created a woman and a man, and had them living in the garden rent-free. Of course, things did not stay perfect. That first man and first woman were free of any burdens, any problems, and, well, any garments whatsoever. And they were also without any shame or any negative thoughts or feelings. Of course, the paradise was doomed to fail because God had introduced people to the situation, and, well, people are never content. So when the woman saw that the forbidden tree was good for food, and that it was a delight to the eyes, and that the tree was to be desired to make one wise, she took of its fruit and ate, and she also gave some to her husband, who was with her, of course. And so, of course, he ate. Then the eyes of both were opened, and they were aware of themselves and of one another, and suddenly realized they were naked. And they sewed fig leaves together and made themselves loincloths. And these were the first masks. And they heard the sound of the divine Creator walking in the garden in the cool of the day, and the man and his wife hid themselves from the presence of God among the trees of the garden. But the infinite God called to the man and said to him,
"Man, where are you?"
And the man said, I heard you. I heard the sound of you in the garden, and I was afraid because I was naked, and I hid myself. And so it was that the human preoccupation with fear and shame and hiding had its origins. The first hiding was from God, and then from each other. And humans became so expert at fear and shame and hiding that we could even hide from ourselves. And our coverings advanced from leafy loincloths to the higher forms of disguises and masks, eventually achieving great anonymity in the internet and automobile. And this next sketch is about that form of masking ourselves.
I don't know. Ho! What the heck? What were you doing?
Hello, dear viewers. This is Karen from WG Unity, and I'm here at this horrific scene of this awful accident downtown Denver. And I had a chance to talk to Mr. Superman. Mr. Superman, thank you for taking your time to talking to us. What happened?
I don't have much time to talk to you. I'm a very busy man. I've got a world to save out there. What was she doing driving like that?
You okay, though?
I'm an important person now.
Absolutely.
What's this little twit driving the car like that? She doesn't even know how to drive.
Thank you for taking
I've got
time
things to
talk
do.
us. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. And let's take a minute and talk to Mrs. Fashion here. Mrs. Fashion, what's going on here?
He's not super. There's nothing super about him. I'm a victim here. I'm always a victim. These people put signs on me, but then I thought maybe I should leave them because they're right. I always have bad things happen to me, and it's never my fault. I know I was going in circles, but the road went in a circle, so I thought I was supposed to go in a circle, and then I wore these beautiful colors, and look, I've got two kinds of birds. There's some here, and there's some here.
Oh, thank you so much for talking about your lovely fashion. But,
Whatever.
Yeah, but of all the people, Superman really, couldn't you pick somebody else? Oh,
Did you see? Can't you see how he...
yes. Thank you so much, people, and we appreciate your viewing us and taking the time to talk in WGN Unity. And back to the studio. Thank you so much.
Am I on now? Ooh. Well, that was fun. Thank you. Thank you so much to everybody. I really appreciate. There's two Karens, Karen and Jim, and the other Karen and Bobby and David. Thank you, thank you. All right, I need to calm down here. Okay, so, wow, speaking of letting your light shine, can you guys see that I'm like reflecting? I can see it here. All right. So as David said, I am a first-year graduate student at the Iliff School of Theology down the street. And it is really, really wonderful to be able to talk about this theme in particular. I am very familiar with the masks that I have worn and have believed in. And there is this wonderful quote, part of the slideshow that was up there before the service began. It's by Marianne Williamson, and it said, "You must learn a new way to think before you can master a new way to be." And the question I'd like to share with you and ask you is, in what ways do the masks that you wear hide the light that you are? And sometimes masks can be helpful. Sometimes masks can be seen in the roles that we play. You know, I'm a mother or sister, grandmother, father, grandfather, artist, businessman, writer. And sometimes those identities can really help us and help us interact in the world. But sometimes we can identify so strongly with them that we forget. We forget that we're all connected, and we're all light, and we're all holy. And one of the things I like to think about is, you know, where is God in my life? And a personal story I'll share is that I've often struggled with anxiety, but I've been learning that with anxiety comes some thoughts. You know, there's fear, and then there's the space of thinking where I own something as being difficult for me, maybe talking in front of people. But what's interesting is if I can let the thoughts go and let my mind clear and just be present, I find that I rather enjoy looking at a bunny rabbit back there while I'm talking in front of people, and a clown over here, and a pumpkin. I see a pumpkin. And it's actually quite fun to share the light in this way too. And maybe if I can let go of that mask that I have anxiety or something, maybe I can identify more with the all and find my heart there. I would like to leave you with a thought from 2 Corinthians 3:16-18. And it talks about the veils, you know, the veil. And David mentioned that today, how, between worlds or between people, there might be something that keeps us from identifying with the light. But in its essence, that's what all of us are. But whenever anyone turns to the Lord, the veil is taken away. Now the Lord is the Spirit, and where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is freedom. And we who with unveiled faces all reflect the Lord's glory are being transformed into his likeness with ever-increasing glory, which comes from the Lord, who is the Spirit. And so my wish for everybody here is that may today and every day be an opportunity to know yourself as light and let your light shine and share it with everyone else. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Kimberly. And if you're interested in doing something like this or other creative worship experiences, we want to continue doing things like this and having fun in our worship services. And so I don't know if Kimberly's willing to continue with that, but I think she might be. So if you're interested in participating in that, please let her know that as well. So let's just give Kimberly another round of applause. So yeah, that was shorter than I thought. So you're just ready to wrap it up and go home? Is that what you want to do? So I was thinking about that this morning as well, that scripture, and how when we really know ourselves, that we know ourselves as the light that is shining in the world. As Jesus said, you are the light of the world. And so we know that we are the light. As Marianne Williamson also said, that is not our darkness that frightens us. Really is our light. That we are afraid to truly be the light. She said, we say to ourselves, who am I? Who am I to know the truth of my being? Who am I to live as the light in the world? And she says, who are you not to be? Who are you not to be the light? Wearing the mask and hiding ourselves doesn't allow anybody else to be the light, or doesn't help anybody else. Doesn't help the world. But it really helps the world when we're willing to claim it, to own it, and to be it in the world. So who are we? Somebody shared with me last week after we celebrated oneness. He said, well, what about celebrating our separateness? And what I took from that is what he meant was, or I think what I understood was, what about celebrating our individuality? What about celebrating who we are here to be in the world? That we are the light, we are all expressions of God, and yet we are unique and wondrous and powerful expressions of God. And who are we not to know that? Who are we not to claim that? I don't know if it's Marianne Williamson, but somebody said it's really arrogant. It's arrogant of us to say that we're not God in form. Of Course in Miracles talks about the idea, the difference between being selfish and being self-full. That really it's selfish not to be the light. It's selfish not to share your light with the world. Because when we do that, we withhold God from God. We withhold our unique expression of God from the God that is in and through each and every one of us. We withhold God from the world when we deny our light, when we live as though we are not the light. And so the Course in Miracles says we should be self-full. We should be really filled with the awareness of the light within us, and so that we can shine that light into the world. Truly be who we are here to be, uniquely us. As Kimberly was sharing one of her experiences, and what I'm awakening to is my mask that I continue to wear sometimes is this mask of being a spiritual leader, of being a minister, whatever that's supposed to look like. And I think what I'm trying to do is trying to be somebody else's idea of what that's supposed to look like, rather than just be who God is in and through me, uniquely me. And I encourage us all to do that. Celebrate your uniqueness. Celebrate the God that is living in and through you. Reclaim that Sometimes I think we lose it because somebody told us along the way that we were not that. In some way. It may have just been one little phrase somebody said. Maybe it was a parent. Maybe it was a teacher who said, you should just mouth the words. Don't sing. You can't sing. But somehow we allowed somebody or somebodies to dim our light. And we continue to wear these masks that we created to protect ourselves from that pain. And those masks, as we talked about, mask our light. And they mask who we are here to be in the world. Sometimes we talk about, around Halloween, we talk about these disembodied spirits who roam the earth, these souls, these disembodied spirits. But I think that we have the danger of becoming dispirited bodies. Yeah? We are bodies walking around with these masks, being who we think we're supposed to be, or who somebody said we're supposed to be, or not doing what somebody said we shouldn't do. Walk around like the living dead sometimes because we're not alive to that life that is living itself as us. Well, how do we do that? How do we really do that? I think it requires us to be present, to stop long enough to listen. Sometimes it may have been 40 years ago that somebody said something to you that allowed you or caused you to dim your light. Maybe you were a fabulous artist as a child and somebody said, well, what is that? You'll never make any money doing that. Yeah, you have musical talent, but you'll never make any money doing that. And so we accepted that. But we can get in touch with that again. It's still there within us. It is that creative life force energy, God, that is expressing uniquely as you and as me. And I think it's our willingness to stop and listen and connect. Really stop long enough to connect with that life that is living us. And be present to it in every moment. Take the next step. Take out a piece of paper and some crayons and start drawing. Turn on the radio and sing like you've never sung before. Put on some music and dance. Allow your creativity to express itself. Allow that unique life to live itself. We have to give it time and attention and be present for it. Because it is in that, claiming it, owning it, allowing ourselves to express it, that we bring forth into the world God and the manifestation of God as each and every one of us. I believe we're here for a purpose. I believe there are more than 7 billion people on the planet because it takes more than 7 billion people on the planet to bring forth the kingdom of God on the earth. And each and every one of us has a piece of that. But we have to be willing to connect with it, to open ourselves up, and let that light shine. You are a light in the world. Claim it. Let it shine through.